Video games are a vessel that can be used for a lot of things. They can be used to tell gripping and important narratives. They can carry heavy emotions, and they are perhaps the most immersive of any form of media due to the consumer's ability to directly interact with them and influence them. Some teach you lessons that could follow you all throughout the rest of your life. But if anything, to leave all that other stuff aside, video games are a vessel for fun, for enjoyment. As I displayed, video games can be used to do so many different things, and due to the huge variety of genres that exist within the scope of video games and the ability of developers to blend those genres, there is a massive amount of novelty to be found within the medium as a whole. And we as humans often find joy in novelty. That being said, there's a plethora of games out there that are painfully similar to more innovative releases that came before them, some of higher quality than others. For example, Dark Souls. When the game came out in 2011, it was incredibly unique, and as a result, it spawned a whole new genre in its wake called Souls-like. Now, yes, technically Demon Souls did it first, but although it was relatively successful, FromSoftware really made their name with Dark Souls, so I'm just going to go with that for the sake of the video. So anyway, a few years passed, and now people were making and releasing Souls-like games. 2014 rolls around, and you get Lords of the Fallen. Now, this game kinda really sucks. The lore doesn't feel as fleshed out, the movement and combat feel like really sluggish, and areas and bosses just aren't memorable. Essentially, the game has not innovated on anything to make it superior to Dark Souls, or at least a competitor with something unique to offer, so it was thrown to the wayside by the general audience, myself included. Lords of the Fallen was the first major Souls-like by a company other than FromSoftware to ever release. But as the years went on, better Souls-likes kept coming out. Salt and Sanctuary said, what if we took Dark Souls and then made it 2D? Neo said, what if we took Dark Souls and added even more combat mechanics and stats to it? Fallen Order said, what if Dark Souls was Star Wars? More recently, Mortal Shell said, what if you could be a rock? I really enjoy all four of these games because they're all bringing something new to the table that I can't really get anywhere else, and also are just really solidly made beyond just that unique aspect. Essentially, novelty is an extremely important aspect that game developers need to consider to draw in more players and create better experiences. To me, there are three main aspects to this. First of all, a game needs to appear novel before players buy them in order to draw them in. Secondly, the game needs to innovate during its runtime by introducing new mechanics or adding new layers to already existing mechanics in order to keep the gameplay loop interesting for players throughout the experience. Finally, by the time a game ends, players need to have been shown that the game was a unique and high-quality experience, which in turn allows the developers or franchise to gain followers. Of course, that's not to say that every game needs to be really unique at a revolutionary level. That's not what I'm saying. You know, things like sequels exist, and there are only so many genres of game that one can make. But each game, in order to be successful, does need to differentiate itself enough to make it seem worth buying, and then after that, worth playing. So all of that has been a thought I've had for a long time. So to me, it seemed logical that all the big releases that were coming out at any given time could be attributed to being popular due to just being overall solidly made from the more important aspects of game design that people are looking for, but also due to having some sort of unique twist on gameplay and genre conventions. Let's look at some of Sony's first-party games. God of War was first popularized in 2005 due to its deep and responsive combat. Someone can go to Uncharted for a fun and well-made third-person shooter, but also for the charming writing and great character performances. People went to Metal Gear Solid in 1998 for some incredibly nuanced and advanced stealth mechanics for the time, and even now. The list goes on. Even games that aren't necessarily unique can fall into this category by simply being the most refined version of a certain gameplay loop or style people are looking for. That would be, for example, Call of Duty, or FIFA, or GTA 5, or Dark Souls, like I mentioned earlier. I felt at this point like I had this idea of novelty all figured out. Then I played Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is a game developed by Sucker Punch that came out in 2020 to generally pretty average critical reception, but massive fanfare from casual gamers. And I didn't play it at the time that the game released, but a little over a year later, and all that praise really confused me. Don't get me wrong, I still think Ghost of Tsushima is an enjoyable experience overall, but it's very far from what I hear most casual gamers describe it as.
Now, I could go on and on about the things that I think are well designed and not so well designed about Ghost of Tsushima, but the bottom line is, especially at the end of a console generation where open world games were huge and plentiful,
Ghost of Tsushima takes essentially no creative risks, and the things it has taken from other successful titles are not as refined or as fun as in those titles. Even within Sony's other first-party lineup, you can find better iterations of so many things that Ghost of Tsushima does. Did you come to Ghost of Tsushima for the narrative? Play anything Naughty Dog has released in the last 3 console generations. Open world exploration, you have the Horizon franchise and the Spider-Man games. Combat, Bloodborne has fantastic melee-focused combat, and if you're looking for that fast, think-on-your-toes kind of combat, where you're constantly switching through tools and weapons, like the stances and tools in Ghost of Tsushima, then you can play the Horizon franchise. Better yet, if you want specifically that stance system of combat, the Neo games have an incredibly deep stance system that I think dwarfs Ghost of Tsushima's in depth and difficulty. I could keep going on, but I think I've bashed Ghost of Tsushima enough, and that's not the point of this video. Like I said at the start of this section, I still do enjoy Ghost of Tsushima, but it is easy to point out all of its many flaws. This is what I'm talking about. Familiarity versus novelty and creativity. Sure, it can be fun to jump into a boilerplate open world release every once in a while, but novelty is a hugely important element in game design. Thinking about this further though, I came to a realization. Now bear with me here. I know I was just talking about the importance of novelty before anyone says anything. I do have a justification for this, and I know I just moved from talking about a Sony first-party release to a Ubisoft game. But anyway, let me tell you a story. Surprisingly enough, I haven't really been into gaming for a very long time. I had a PS3 as a kid, but I didn't really use it too much, and when I did, it was either a Lego game or Minecraft's. And so I bought a PS4 at the start of 2018, and pretty much everything was new to me at that point. So when my friend bought me Far Cry 5 at launch to play through the game with me, it was a magical experience. Everything felt so fresh and new and creative, and while that obviously is not the case looking back, especially not the case with Far Cry 5, it was for me. I had never played an open world game or a first-person shooter ever. I mean, apart from those short sessions with friends that don't really count, but especially at that point in my life that I played the game, it felt special just beyond never having played an open world game or a first-person shooter. I had just moved across the world, and the serene landscapes and calm vistas of Montana really hit close to home for me, and they still do. So even though I can definitely recognize that Far Cry 5 is far from being the best Far Cry game in terms of actual game design, it's still my personal favorite Far Cry due to all this stuff. So even now, maybe that's why I can still look past all the issues in Far Cry 5 and get so much enjoyment out of it. And after all those years and so many games played in those years, maybe that's the same reason why I can't find the same enjoyment or praise with Ghost of Tsushima. So with all of this in mind, I've come to the conclusion that novelty is not only an important thing for game developers to consider when designing a game, but it is also equally important for each player to consider the novelty that they're about to receive from a game based on their own experiences. As I've just explained, this makes a huge difference, because even though most people one might ask would tell you, oh, of course, Ghost of Tsushima is a better game than Far Cry 5, my personal experience was that Far Cry 5 was exponentially more enjoyable due to that factor of novelty. See, the reason I loved Far Cry 5 so much initially is because of how new and alien everything felt to me. Obviously, I can't give you a recommendation that will generate a similar experience, because those are the kind of things that can only happen a few times and are incredibly situational. What I can do, though, is give a few recommendations of the most unique games that I have played, in the hopes that you can find something you haven't experienced before through this video. Now, to me, I couldn't start this section in any other way than the Middle-earth games, which probably have the single most unique mechanic in any game that I can think of, that being the Nemesis system. This system only exists in these two games in this franchise, Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. It is a really in-depth system and essentially creates its own stories based around the way you interact with the world and the orc captains that are in it. Now, Shadow of Mordor is a great game, don't get me wrong, I would recommend it, but it's more simplified in pretty much all aspects compared to its sequel. Shadow of War is the Nemesis system in all of its glory. And if you have not experienced the Nemesis system, then you are in for one of the most unique experiences that you will ever come across in gaming. And I'm giving this recommendation based not only on just the absolute innovation that is the Nemesis system, but also just because this game is just really good beyond that system. I know it did have a rocky launch with all the microtransactions and stuff, but that stuff is gone and the game is great. Second up, we have Subnautica. There's not as much to say about this game to sell it. It's a sci-fi survival game set on a planet that is almost entirely covered by an ocean. Now, I don't like survival games, I'm not gonna lie, but I love Subnautica, and I'm not gonna pretend like it's perfect, because it does have some issues and some bugs, but those are quite easy to look past in the face of everything that this game achieves. Mirror's Edge is a first-person game that is entirely focused on movement and parkour. It's flashy, it's fun, it's exciting, and it is also very unique. Just don't play it if you have motion sickness. Before Your Eyes is a short indie game that's basically an interactive movie where you control things by blinking in real life. It does use your webcam, but for the record, it does not record anything, and it offers one of the most touching narratives that I've experienced in a game. Fury is like if Sekiro was a bullet hell game. Do I need to say more? Outer Wilds captures organic exploration so masterfully and presents a really intriguing world and a big mystery to solve. The FromSoftware Soulsborne games are all of incredibly high quality and offer not only some of the best designed, but also most fun and rewarding experiences in gaming. They might be daunting because of their reputation of very high difficulty, but they are so worth getting into. I personally recommend either Bloodborne or Dark Souls 1 as the best entryway into the series, although Bloodborne is admittedly a little harder because it's a PlayStation exclusive. And finally, and this is the recommendation that I give the most weight to, just any game in a genre you've never tried. It might feel weird to move out of your comfort zone, but trying a new genre can end up being loads of fun. I'll give a few recommendations now. Platformers, I recommend Rayman Legends, The End is Nigh, and Celeste. First-person shooters, you could try a Doom game, or a Halo game, or play Half-Life or Bioshock. Metroidvanias, you got Hollow Knight and Blasphemous, those are phenomenal. Hades and The Binding of Isaac are some amazing roguelike genre games. Got stealth games like Sniper Elite, Metal Gear series, which is kind of hard to access, but it is quite worth it. Hitman, Splinter Cell, open world games, you have Far Cry, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring. Some of the Assassin's Creed franchise, I have a hard time recommending that because a lot of those are hit or miss, but some of them are quite fun. And I could keep going, but I'll leave the recommendations at that. The bottom line is novelty is important in and out of gaming. So get out of your comfort zone and try something new because it is so worth it. So I'm sorry for rambling on for a while at the end there, but hopefully you were able to find a game or franchise or just genre that looks interesting to you. Thank you all for watching this video though. If you'd like to see more videos in the future, please do like the video, subscribe, and share it to your friends so that we can grow this channel. I don't say that lightly because, as I always say, these videos are time consuming and pretty difficult to make, so I really appreciate the support. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. I do hope you're having a good day today, and if you're not, I hope that this video helped you on the journey to making it a better one. I will see you all in the next video, but until then, goodbye.